So it's early May and we're going to do a split. We're going to take out a nuke. Wet, and it rained in April, May, June, and suddenly the sun came out in July. And certainly in Yorkshire we had a bumpy year. The water table was high, the wildflowers, the clover, blackberry, willow herb really gave a lot of nectar, and I had one of the best years for a long time. So, but I'm worried this year because we've had 7 weeks of sunshine. They forecast another 2 weeks of sun, which takes us to the end of May, and I do worry about where the water table will be in July and August when the blackberry comes out. But right, so we're going to have a look in here. Right. This is the Long Hive. We haven't seen the queen since last year, so that should be fun. This is her 3rd year, so you know, she will probably swarm at some point. So we're going to take her out and let the colony raise a new queen, and but they've done extremely well. Just to say, if you're going to do this, whatever container you're going to put the nuke into, do make sure the entrance is closed. So this is a poly nuke, and it's got a revolving entrance here. I used to obviously use a wooden nuke box, but I love the poly nukes. They're so much lighter. So close that first, so you know the queen's not going to escape or come out, go back to the main colony.
As a professional, it's interesting that you were saying how good poly nukes are.
Love them.
Because in about the 60s, or maybe the early 70s, there was a lady from Surrey called Clara Furness, who was a great competitor at the National Honey Show, won everything,
right,
the wax. And she used to come and say, you know, you've got to use poly hives. And at that time, people turned their noses up at it. And they are, she was so right.
She was. And what was this, the late 60s?
It would have been 50 years ago, 50 or 60
Wow.
years ago. She came to lecture at the Halifax Beekeepers down at Scout Bottom. And
right,
she was lecturing about mead. And we had about 20 members there in our music room. And she said, well, before we start, we'd better have a drink. And she'd brought a case of 12 bottles, which we finished. By the time we finished, I think we were perhaps not quite ready to listen to her. But
sounds like a good meeting.
No, she was a star.
Sometimes, if you make up a nuke in May, depends on where you are in the country. Of course, you get the June gap when the wildflowers dry up. And the bees will start to get very awkward and difficult because obviously the honey flows stop. So it's quite a good idea to feed them with a weak solution of sugar syrup. I'm not using smoke. They seem fine. If you use smoke, the queen tends to run, and I don't want that. She could be under the bottom, even come out the entrance. So I'm not using any smoke, although I've got some here. I just take a frame out here. My goodness, this is all honey. If I undo a bit here, you can see this is probably what they brought in over the last few weeks. But you need heat for May blossom. You need high nighttime and daytime temperatures.
And it doesn't always yield.
Oh no, no. Okay, right, now this is interesting. I've not bothered with the frames with the honey, she won't be on that. But this one here has got larvae and some eggs, probably 1 or 2 days old. Bees are staying on the comb, which is what I like. When you make up a nuke, once you've found the queen, it gets easy. Oh, she's laying beautifully. So we've got nice slabs of brood. There's another drone. Notice the way that the bees avoid the metal, the wire that's in the centre of the frame. Oh, there's some queen cells along the bottom here. By the way, if you come across queen cells, don't knock them out. Leave them there. You can always come back. You can always mark the top of the frame so you know where they are, but don't chop them out at this stage. When I look for a queen, I look at the outside edge first and then work inwards. Oh, we've got some queen cells. So, and they are sealed. So this is at least the 8th day, 7th or 8th day, and this colony will split very quickly. Yeah, and all we've got to do now is find the queen. So there's 3 queen cells, 4 or 5 queen cells on this frame. I like the longer the better. So anything that's stunted, short, I will take those out. No, she's not on there. Now what I will do, I'm going to just put a cross on the top. So I know that's got sealed queen cells, so I can come back to that frame later on. Some more queen cells here, another 3. Look round the edges, particularly here where it's uneven. The queens like to hide in brace comb, cavities in the wax. No, there's no eggs in this section.
No eggs?
No, not this one. And whenever you work the bees, make sure you keep the frame over the hive, just in case the queen drops off. You don't want her on the ground. A lot of pollen here. We've had a bump year for dandelion here in West Yorkshire, and that's clearly what they've been bringing in. We're doing this at midday, so quite a few of the bees are out. But normally, if you find young, fresh eggs, that's a good indicator. I wouldn't waste time on looking on the frames with honey until the end if I'm really desperate. Quite nice with a long hive because you're just going along, you're not going up. When you're looking for the queen, look at the colour of the bees, and that will give you an indicator of what she'll look like. If they're light coloured, like Italian bees, then she will be most probably a similar colour. These are quite dark.
Of course, the other tip when you're looking for a queen is not to look for anything else.
Correct. We're going to go back through the hive, check again. Just looking at the front entrance, Richard, just to make sure she's not playing sillies. You can see the lighter pollen. This is could be apple. Because there was a company called Taylor's, I remember first buying equipment from.
They were bought by Thorn.
Yeah.
And of course Taylor's, there's a book about the history of Taylor's, and Taylor's were the predecessor to Thorns, really. I mean, they had a staff of 90.
Wow.
And if you look at the history of Taylor's, the book, there'll be a picture of all the staff. The Taylor's, of course, were so big that they had a railway siding which went straight into the factory.
Where were they based?
Welham, I think.
As you can see, the further on we go towards the honey, the fewer bees there are. So we've got a problem. Yeah. We can't lead the colony like this because they will swarm. We've seen 3 frames here with queen cells on. I've marked them with a cross. We've not found the queen. What I would do now is take out the queen cells and make up a nuke from them. So that we know there's no queen cells in there. It gives you another 7 days to have a look and hopefully find the queen then. She can still swarm, but at least you've got a week's grace. I said at the beginning about not knocking out the queen cells, but I think there's 2 things. Relieve the pressure on this colony, take out frames of brood and give them more space. Take the queen cells out so at least they will hatch and you'll have a queen in 3 or 4 weeks' time. Should this one fail, because this is her 3rd year, we can always reintroduce the new queen into this colony. So should this fail, we've got an insurance policy. Right, so I'm going to go back now, look for the frames with the crosses on, take the queen cells out, shake bees out, and deplete the colony, give them more space, I still keep looking for the queen, but I think that's the best we can do at present. A couple of queen cups, nice brood. So we'll put that in here. This one was the one with the queen cells on. 1, 2, 3 here. I'm taking the queen cells out and I'm going to make sure I'm leaving very young eggs and larvae. But this frame here is what I'm going to leave, because there are young eggs here, young larvae. There's a queen cell here, but I'm going to knock it out. I'm going to take that one out. You know, it may be that the queen ends up in here, but at least it gives them, they've got this couple of frames here of young brood to then develop into a new queen. That's the most important factor. You know, you've got a few more days. You've got up to a week, because they cap the queen cell on the 8th day. But the other thing is, if you can't find them, what you can do is put the frames into pairs, and leave it open to the light. The queen will go between the pairs eventually. So come back 10 minutes later and you may have a better chance of finding the queen then. So of course, if we do come across the queen, we would just reverse this, put her in here, put the queen cells back in, and knock it down to 2 or 3. But as I said, what's good is that we've got an insurance policy. These here, if this colony fails, we just bring them back. I must say, I would recommend the Long Hive. I think it's really good, and particularly if you've got a bad back. It's just the right height to work from. Right, with a nuke, you need obviously sealed brood, queen or queen cells. You need pollen, and you need nectar, and obviously a cross section of worker bees and nurse bees. So I'm shaking some in. Obviously the worker bee will be out collecting at present. These will tend to be nurse bees. Just our luck to have the queen out here. This is a lovely colony. She's not there. Okay, so what we've done is we've taken out the queen cells, made up a nuke here. There's about 7 or 8 queen cells in there. This is going to be taken some distance away. This will go over the other side of Bradford, and this will then mate with some drones from another apiary. Keep a close watch on this one. We've depleted the colony by 4 solid frames of brood, so it's given her a bit more space, but we know the swarming instinct is there. Because it's her 3rd year, she's done well to get through to the 3rd year without swarming. But she's got room, and we may or may not find her towards the end of the week, but the bees will then possibly use some of the eggs to raise a new queen. On the 8th day, they'll cap it, and then the queen will emerge on the 16th day. The dodgy period is after that, because like last year I made up a number of nukes in May, and the weather was awful. So some of my colonies, the queens got mated, but they went into the winter really not with enough sperm inside them. So a couple of them have actually failed this April, and that's the reason. The weather was inclement and they didn't get mated on enough days. So you're in the lap of the gods, really. We've marked the frame with the eggs and young eggs and larvae. That's the one that I would go to straight away to look for queen cells. It may be that she's, quite happy with the space now and the depletion of the colony and does nothing. Or come July, they could just supersede her. In which case, the egg, the new queen cell, would be high up on the frame, 1 or 2. And if you see that, do not knock them out. Leave it, because they will just replace her quite naturally. Sometimes you can even have 2 queens in a hive, and I've had that on several occasions over the years. We've done something not ideal. I'd like to know what you find later in the week. What I love about beekeeping is you're always learning. Even after sort of 50 years, I still see things that amaze me. I still do things that are wrong, and that's the joy of it. But they are so clever. Taken all of them, not to couple out.
Apart from one?
No, not left any. It gives us a week's grace. These are all Heinz 57 Yorkshire variety. I used to buy bees in the late 1990s from Greece, Italy.
And you found they were great for the first year?
Took the words out of my mouth. Yeah, I love the Italian bees. They were very bright yellow, very light coloured. very docile and gentle. But I spent all winter feeding them, and you know, you had a very strong colony, and they weren't the best. I don't think they were suitable for our climate up on the Pennines. So I didn't buy any more. I just had 1 year of those. But I bought Carnolian bees from a guy in northern Greece. They were good. But then I was worried about, you know, obviously we had Varroa that started in the early 90s. And I was reading about, you know, bringing disease into the country. And I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. So I just basically, you know, used my own queens. And that's what I've done the last 25 years. So these bees here will be very similar to the ones that they originally came from. I've got an apiary with 8 or 9 hives in near Norwood Green, and it's a delightful spot, and that's where this one, that's where these are going.